Hi, my name is Casey Webb, and I'm a geology professor at SUU. One thing I love about being a geology professor here is we have access to some wonderfully exposed rocks. And in case you're wondering, yes, exposed rocks are what geologists like to see. When they're covered by vegetation, it's not nearly as much fun. Here at the Coal Creek Trail, we have a wonderful view of this feature called the Red Hill. It's great to have the opportunity to bring students out here and really see the geology in action. One thing I love about geology is if you know what you're looking at, the rocks really can tell you a story. In fact, Earth's history is recorded within the rocks that are located upon Earth. These rock layers that you see behind me are recording a significant portion of Earth's history. And we can learn and understand this history by looking at the rocks, just like we can from perhaps reading the stories of historical accounts from a history book. So if we think of the layers of Earth as the pages of a history book, the layers behind me, we have the oldest layer, which is around 225 million years old, and the youngest layer, which is around 185 million years old. That represents a 40 million year package. Well, Earth itself is 4.54 billion years old. So with that in mind, how many pages, if this represents all of Earth's history, how many pages do you think these layers would represent? Well, to help you out, I have marked the pages they would represent with these small sticky notes that you see in there. So it turns out 40 million years in the context of Earth's history would represent just 8 of the 910 pages within this history book. And to kind of help us understand the context better, these layers, as I mentioned, are between 225 and 185 million years old. If we were to use this book as an example and have the end of the book be the formation of Earth and the very beginning be today, we would see that these layers would represent pages 37 to 45 within this book. So even though that seems like just not that many, seems maybe insignificant, 8 pages within this history book, you get a lot of cool stories in there. There might be some great insights that you gain. And likewise, if we look at the Red Hill, if we analyze these layers and really look at the rocks and try to understand what they're showing us, we can gain some important insights into the history of Earth and into the geologic development of the Cedar City area. So as I mentioned, these rock layers that we can see behind me, they're recording significant events of Earth's history. These events include changes within the climate, changes within the local environment, changes within the geologic system where sediment's depositing, changes in life and evolution, and also changes within the tectonic setting. So just to give you some ideas of how this works, you can clearly see that these layers have different identifiable properties that you can easily see from the trail. We have different colors, we have different shapes, we have different patterns within them. We can separate these layers into different formations or different packages of rock that share common properties and are of the same age. And we have at the base of the hill the Moenkopi Formation. Above that we have the Chinle Formation, which creates this white ridge line. Then above that we have the Moenavi Formation, which is the orangish layer. Then we have the Kayenta Formation. And then at the very top of the hill we have the Navajo Formation. So each of these formations are recording different distinct depositional environments And that's why these formations and these layers have such distinct and different properties from each other. All right, so just to give you an example of how the environment and the climate and all these other factors can change, let's just look at maybe the two lowest layers of the hill. We have the Moenkopi Formation, which we can see with the red and white stripes. And then directly above it, we have the Chinle Formation, where we see the really prominent white layer that has kind of this purplish looking stuff below it. So if we look at the Moenkopi Formation, if I were to take you to that rock outcrop and we were to sample it, we would see that it contains a lot of this mineral, which is called gypsum. Gypsum, turns out, forms from the evaporation of seawater. So what that means is where we see that gypsum, that location was along an arid coastline. So Utah, 225 million years ago, was beachfront property. We were right along this arid coastline where that evaporation could occur and gypsum could accumulate. Okay, if we look at the Chinle Formation, that is directly above the Moenkopi and a bit younger than it, we would find some small pebbles, some coarse sand. Guess what we could also find? We could find some petrified wood in there. If you look closely and carefully, there might even be some fossils of fish bones and some crocodile-like creatures within there as well. All of these things indicate that the environment shifted from an arid coastline to a flowing river system. And within this flowing river system, we had a different type of sediment, different life forms that were thriving. And once again, this is recorded within the rock. If we look at the layers above that, within the Moenavi and Kayenta Formation, we also see evidence of river systems, although maybe not as large or not within as much of a humid environment. And then within that very top layer, the Navajo sandstone, we see that the sand within that layer and the structures that preserve that layer looks just like modern sand dunes that we can visit. So that layer is preserving a giant ancient sand dune desert, which actually covered all of the state of Utah and parts of the surrounding states. So within our 8 pages of history that we have compared to this book, we can see how the climate, how the environment, and how life has changed over time.